Hey, I'm John Iadarola here for TYT Interviews, and we have got a great interview for you today. I'm going to be speaking with Ashley Spillane, the fresh new president of Rock the Vote, the largest nonpartisan Get Out the Vote organization in the country. Thank you for joining us, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
It's great that you made time for us. I know that there's got to be a very busy period for you, what with national elections coming up, the midterm elections in less than a month. We're just a week or two out from National Voter Registration Day. So what have you guys been up to recently in anticipation of those midterm elections?
Well, we did just pass National Voter Registration Day in September 23rd, which was incredibly fun and exciting. A couple years ago, we started this national holiday to celebrate voting and democracy and to make sure before any of the voter registration deadlines passed, everybody would have a chance to get registered and sort of do it in community with each other. So for National Voter Registration Day, we work in coalition with several amazing partners. And this year, we really focused at Rock the Vote on trying to give technology companies and platforms and civic engagement partners access to our online voter registration tool so that they can embed it in their own site and allow us to really meet young people where they are, which is online and on these platforms like Tumblr or Lyft or WordPress. We had some great coverage on National Voter Registration Day, lots and lots of partners, so it was exciting.
Yeah, that sounds like a great series of innovations. I mean, certainly we here at TYT are trying to reach them on those same sites. Now, I find it inconceivable that anyone watching this is not familiar with Rock the Vote, but just in case they're not, I want to give a little bit of basic information about the organization. Then, of course, you can expand on that. It was launched back in 1990. It helped gain passage of the Motor Voter Bill, a very significant piece of pro-democracy legislation in 1993. And so far, you've helped register 6 million Americans. Anything else significant people should know about your organization before we get started with some of our questions?
It has an amazing history fusing pop culture with politics and has pioneered this idea of meeting young people where they are and evolving along with all of the technology developments and media developments and cultural changes even.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned your work with sort of like celebrities and pop culture. I know that I believe earlier today, Rock the Vote released a music video with Lil Jon to sort of raise awareness about voting.
We did. Turnout for what?
I'm Darren, and I'm turning out for education.
I'm EJ, and I'm turning out for marriage equality.
My name is Lil Lena, and I'm turning out for reproductive rights.
Yeah, I saw that was posted all over the place. It seems like that's going to be a big success for you guys.
It was, yeah. It's been a really fun 24 hours since we released it to see the excitement and enthusiasm behind it. We worked with some amazing people to pull it together, and obviously, we have people like Lena Dunham and Ireland Baldwin and Ben Lyons, like some amazingly great people, so many of them actually, who helped us make it happen. And it's just a fun video to do what we want to do, which is just celebrate voting and young people's participation in democracy, and really make the point too that if you care about issues, no matter what they are, it's not good enough to just care. You actually have to go to the polls and have your voice heard by casting a vote.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like you're probably going to reach a lot of people with that. Now, I want to start off with you, president of Rock the Vote. How did you get involved with the issue of voter rights, trying to increase turnout, and then eventually end up as the president of this organization?
That's a great question. When I was in college, I got really involved in politics and wanting to make a difference in this country and feeling like helping work on elections was the way to do that. And, I find that the work that I did for many years on campaigns incredibly fulfilling and really rewarding, and you get to see the tangible results of your work pretty quickly. Sometimes it doesn't go the way you want, but you're almost always having an impact on people and really inspiring them to exercise their right and make sure that they're positions are being heard. And I say this all the time. I mean, it's basically if you aren't happy with the direction this country is going in, you have to turn out and actually make a difference and change. And if you are happy with the direction the country is going in, you also have to turn out and make your voice heard. And I'm really excited to be engaged in this new role at Rock the Vote, which is nonpartisan, because I just think that, as a millennial and working with millennials, there's a lot of frustration with the way politics is done in this country, and that so much of our process has become about partisanship and tension between the parties and gridlock. And I think that, the millennial generation is this amazingly inspired and bright, and has all this access to technology and tools and information. We're consuming more information from more platforms than ever before. And I happen to, especially, my friends, we all are just on get it done. We are very efficient. We are working. We don't understand barriers. We've I think always been told we can sort of be whatever we want to be. And we've come into the workforce by storm to help actually change those things. And you see this entrepreneurial spirit amongst millennials and this high rate of volunteerism that demonstrates that. And what I think the Challenge Rock the Vote has, and that we're working on and addressing with all of our partners, is making sure that young people understand that they can care about an issue and they can fix whatever problem is in their community however they want to do it, but they also have to vote. So, I use the example of the creation of all these apps. I mean, I think one of the funnier ones is like Tinder. You couldn't get a date. Let's create an app that you can find a date on. And it's so clever and so creative, and it's so geared towards problem solving. And we just really need to tap into that spirit to change what's happening in the country, and make sure that innovative spirit is carried into the representation.
I want to go back to something you said early on when you were talking about what it feels like to sort of break through some of the apathy of young people and see them become interested and invested in politics. I know that, like, in our political show, whenever we speak to our fans and you have like a 17, 18-year-old, it always feels sort of special that someone young takes an interest in an issue that normally isn't seen as sort of a youthful sort of thing. But we do know historically that young people tend to vote at lower rates. We know also in midterms there tends to be less voting participation. And I apologize, I don't remember the source, but I saw today that there are estimations that for voters below 25, they think that less than 1 in 4 will actually end up voting, which has to be somewhat alarming, I think, to most people, especially you who's involved in voter outreach. What do you think causes, in 2014, still some of the level of apathy that we see in young voters, and what issues do you know that in this election cycle are going to actually lead to people to want to get out there and vote? Well,
I take issue with the notion that it's apathy. I think that when you look at what's going on in this country, there are a number of reasons that young people don't vote, but I think it's also really important to keep in mind that they are voting, and young people have been participating the last few election cycles at record rates, in fact. But there are barriers to participation that we have to address when we have this conversation, and it's really frustrating. I get asked this all the time, but it's not that people don't care. This is not a generation that doesn't care, and I understand the stereotype of the lazy, selfish millennial, and it's not true. We do care and we do show up, but we have been challenged to participate for a number of reasons. First, you have civic education cuts in this country where most people aren't getting a really good education about what it means to participate and how to participate, which is really important. It can be overwhelming to participate in a process that you're not familiar with the way it works. And the second thing is that we have this like fairly antiquated voting system in the country where, it is still the case, as it was when our country started, that there is one day a year that you go to a central location, a courthouse built in the 1800s, and you wait in line to cast your ballot. And you have this generation, which, by the way, is the largest generation in American history and the most diverse generation in American history. But so you have this generation that's grown up online. These are digital natives who do everything online and are being asked to do something outside that world without being taught properly how to do it. So, fewer than 50% of the states in this country even allow you to register to vote online. So in most states, you have to print, sign, and mail your registration form. And I think if you ask a group of millennials where you buy a stamp these days, you get a lot of blank stares.
On Amazon,
and so you can get them at a convenience store.
Yeah. Well,
but,
let me ask you a question.
Those are challenges, yeah.
So it sounds like you would probably be in favor of some form of, at the very least, online registration, if not online voting then.
Yes, I mean, we are 100% advocating for online voter registration. We developed an online voter registration tool years ago that we have been using so that people can at least start the process in most states online, in all states online. And then, we are integrated with some of the states in the country that do have online voter registration. So we just did this year a full integration with the California Secretary of State so that you can actually fill your information out on rockthevote.com and then get your information passed to the Secretary of State. And it ends up being incredibly efficient. It reduces a lot of human error in the process, and it's also cheaper for the state. So I think you'll see more states moving towards that soon, but it's one of the things that we just need to do in order to meet young people where they are. I mean, I think it's a little, it strikes me as a little bit funny to keep complaining about low youth participation and then do very little to accommodate increasing it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and some of the traditional methods that have been discussed in terms of changes we can make to increase participation, like voting on the weekend or making Election Day a holiday, increasing the number of days when people could vote. I assume you'd be in favor of those as well.
I mean, there's a number of things that can be done to make it easier. And what you're seeing this year, unfortunately, is many states actually doing the opposite of that and making it harder by implementing stricter ID laws, stripping away polling places on college campuses. In Kansas and Arizona, they require proof of citizenship of some of their citizens. In Texas, you can use your gun license, but you can't use your student ID. In Tennessee, you can use a professor can use the university ID, but a student can't. Yeah. And then in North Carolina, you've seen several barriers erected to participation. So I think it's just really important that we think about how everybody feels when the election comes around, which is that, it's a busy time of year, you got to carve time out, and then we add several layers that make it harder for a certain demographic, young people and people of color, to do it. It's just, it's only normal that the rates aren't as high. And I think that what happens, unfortunately, is this self-perpetuating cycle, which is if participation is low among a certain group of people, then the next time around, candidates aren't paying as much attention to that group of people. Yeah. And that's what you see, surely. Like, there's significantly less money spent in a midterm election. Very few candidates are thinking about engaging young people on issues that they care about and focusing specifically on turning those, investing in strategies that will help educate young people about the election and to help get them to the polls, which I think is also something that we need to change. And my message to all of my peers is show up. Just show up. However you want to vote this cycle, that is a personal choice, but show up so that we will demand to be heard in this year, next year, and all the years to come.
You brought up there earlier some barriers to voting, and so we were just talking about some things that could be done to increase access, and I'm glad that you brought up that things lately have been done in a number of states to decrease access. And a study just came out from Congress today showing that, as we would have suspected, voting ID laws and things like that do lead to decreased turnout, especially for the young, minorities, the elderly, and things like that. Now, of course, Rock the Vote is a nonpartisan organization, but I think it's hard to deny that attempts to stop especially young people from voting are not especially nonpartisan. At this point, it does seem as if the parties have very different stances on who should be voting and in what numbers. And so how does your organization sort of tread the line of not trying to take sides in a very real sense when you understand that one party doesn't seem, I'm obviously talking about the Republican Party, doesn't seem particularly interested in young people, especially college students, in voting in many cases?
I mean, we work with people on both sides of the aisle, and our mission is clear, which is to build political power for young people. A huge part of that is standing up for their rights and for making sure that that young people have access to participate. And layered on top of that, then we go and try to make it fun and interesting and educate and provide all the information that's needed in order to participate. I just disagree that voting is a partisan issue. I think that there are states making some really bad choices right now, but at the end of the day, I think, and I do think if you ask, I mean, people agree that the more people that participate, the better. And you certainly don't have people passing these laws that will overtly tell you it's to keep people from voting. So,
not generally. Sometimes behind closed doors, cell phone video footage does show them saying something to that effect. I understand you have to be diplomatic. You are a nonpartisan organization. Now, one of the things that I hear young people sometimes say when talking about voting, especially in the last few presidential elections, is that they don't feel that the system is secure. They feel that their vote could be changed. And obviously, in some international elections, the UN will send monitors. What do you think about the security and reliability of the American voting system, especially when we're talking about possibly expanding it in the future to some sort of online voting? Do you think that we can trust in the security of the current system? And do you think that some sort of international presence to sort of check for, watch for the reliability and security would be a good thing?
Well, when you really think about what we're talking about, it's not, I don't think like big plots to do anything egregious. It's more when our elections are run differently in all 50 states, and in some of those states they allow each local municipal office to run the elections differently as well. And when you show up at the polls and you look around at who is there administering them, they're volunteers, and they're volunteers who come out and do that once a year. I think that a lot of the problems that we run into are for lack of standards across the board. And maybe lack of training, or I just think a lot of mistakes get made and introduced by human error, and I don't think that they're often maliciously done. And the reason that I think, well, particularly like we see this as online voter registration, the system is secure and it reduces the human error or the opportunity for human error in a way that ends up producing a more reliable voter file. So I think, you saw probably the Washington Post article earlier this year, or just a month or two ago, about, voting fraud being, I don't know, 1 in 6 cases in a billion or something.
Yeah, extremely rare.
An incredibly rare occurrence.
Obviously, you're Rock the Vote. You're concerned with voting, but as you implied, it's important that people, that young people especially, understand that there is something for them in the system. So, to what extent do non-voting electoral activities matter to your organization, like writing letters, signing petitions, engaging in protests and other forms of activism? Obviously, you want to see as many people as possible get out there on election day, but how important are these other sorts of democratic activities?
Yeah, I mean, being involved in the process isn't just a one time a year thing. So, especially where there's close to consensus on an issue, as you've seen in recent years with marriage equality, for example, that polls that most young people in the country support laws that will honor people's right to choose who they're married to. In those cases, that we help facilitate people getting involved either at the local level or at the federal level in advocacy.
We here at TYT, I mean, we have a number of different shows about lots of different topics, but our main show is about the politics. And we have a much younger audience than most mainstream news outlets, but still the average age is somewhere between 30 and 40 years. We don't have a lot of 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-old viewers necessarily. So as the president of an organization like Rock the Vote, I'm sure that you have some problems with the way media covers politics that might make it less accessible or understandable or interesting to young voters. Is there any change that you would make, if you could, to the way media covers politics, the issues they choose to cover or not cover, that you think could lead to more engagement by young Americans?
Yeah, I mean, when I go on TV, just as an example, I really wish people would say, what do young people have to be excited about this year, rather than how come no one's voting? And I think that, there are studies that show the more we talk about how difficult it is to vote or how few people will be doing it, the fewer people will do it because, they're going to think it's hard. And so I think that part is challenging. And then I think there aren't enough positive examples of what gets done as a result of your participation. And there are so many to be had. I think if we could cover a few more of those to show the importance of actually voting, it would be great. It would probably be a game changer. But so much of it is the horse race, the who's fighting who, that I think this generation doesn't affiliate as closely with political parties, and certainly is turned off by the negativity. So I think it's really important that we all start to be a little bit more positive.
Okay, well, why don't we? I'll follow your lead. So, what do young people have to be especially excited about going into the election in just about 3.5 weeks?
There's so many things on the ballot that they can impact change on, and this is an election where people are being elected all the way from the local level to the federal level who can have impact on voting rights, on making sure that you have the right to come out and vote, on the environment, on marriage equality, on jobs and student loans. I mean, a number of issues that young people care about. Probably, as you saw in our other video, marijuana. Mm-hmm. Young people care about that. And, there's just so many issues that we know young people care about and want to see addressed a certain way. And you just have to come out and vote. Okay,
so we talked at the opening of the interview that you had the Lil Jon, Lena Dunham song. I don't suppose you could give us a heads up on other big releases that you might have in advance of the election?
Ooh, this is a big one. This is our big thing for the year. We have so many amazing people that have been helpful to Rock the Vote, and I think you'll see them continue their engagement. And we had Kendall Jenner earlier this year register to vote on National Voter Registration Day using her mobile phone and posting it. And, it's just so exciting to have people who are being followed by so many young people communicating such a positive message, and to be, she was genuinely excited. She's 18 and it's her first election to vote in, and she was so fired up about registering and using Rock the Vote and helping us push this message out that it's something that you need to do. So I think, Sarah Jessica Parker just tweeted at us today, "What can I do to help?" I hope to see something from her soon. So I think, this video is amazing and great, and we've interacted with so many cool artists at music festivals like Lollapalooza and South by Southwest, and have had everybody from Mary Lambert to Chromeo to Jack Antonoff film messages of encouragement that we'll roll out.
But that's awesome that she's reaching out, not just to the people who can vote this year, but that it gets the idea in their mind for future elections, which I think is a good thing. Maybe Kim next time can retweet it or something like that.
I mean, like millions of followers get to see that. It's amazing. And she registered thousands of people on National Voter Registration Day.
That's awesome.
It's great. It's impressive, and regardless of what you think of her, it's amazing.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to young voters or potential voters who might be on the fence about voting in these midterms?
It matters. It really, really matters. And I know, I completely understand that sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but it really does. And if you show up and you demand a seat at the table and to have your voice heard, I promise things will change. I really, this is, I said it before, this is the largest generation in American history. We outnumber the baby boomers. We should have a say. We should have our voice heard, and we can demand it just by showing up.
I hope that they do make the choice to show up this time.
And go to rockthevote.com to get registered to vote and to check out where your polling place is and what you need to bring with you to the polls, and call us if you have questions.
Okay, well, I hope that they visit the site. Thank you very much, Ashley Spillane, for joining us. Your organization is doing great work and has been for over 2 decades, so thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, well, thank you everyone watching this for joining us at TYT Interviews. Be sure to subscribe if you're not already for more amazing interviews in the near future.